What if I told you that Africa just got direct access to one of the world's largest market, and pretty much at the same exact moment, its biggest revenue engine, oil, is actually becoming unstable? Would you be surprised to hear that? You've not been watching the news, right? By the way, this is not a coincidence. I believe this is a turning point because why China opened its door to 53 African nations, so the global oil system is starting to crack, with UAE stepping away from the OPEC dynamics. Hmm. Here is a real question for you. Is Africa stepping into the future or being locked into the past again? So that's the question I want to analyze with you today, right? Stay with me. We can unpack that in a few seconds. Hello again. How are you doing? My name is Tony. I'm the founder and CEO of RIA. What we do is very simple. We raise awareness about renewable energy and sustainability. So if you're interested to break or expand into Africa, we are your eco bridge to this market and we can help you with three things: the visibility, the leads, but also the deals. Or if you want to decarbonize, we again your eco bridge sustainable pathway, and we can help you with the carbon footprint assessment and the carbon reduction strategies. Reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to discuss with you. Now, what really happened? That's a question that you want to ask. Oh, what is actually happening? Question that I want to know. So let's break it down a little bit. So China, has expanded zero tariff treatment to 53 African countries. So that means that African export across multiple sectors can now enter China duty free. Yes. So at first glance, this looked like a win, isn't it? Right. So after look at that, I was like, oh, that's great. But let's look at that carefully. More trade, more access, more growth. That is good at first. But here is what I would say most people are missing. So, what Africa exports matter more than how much it exports. Why? Because historically, so what Africa has exported is raw material, minerals, agricultural commodities, but also fossil fuels. But what we import in returns is finished goods, technology, but also energy system, right? And we need to change that because what we also see at the same time, this is the other part of the news that I say that you want to pay attention to. So the UAE is actually signaling a departure from OPEC dynamics. This is not just an oil story, by the way, if that's what you were thinking, because that's what I would say at first it looked like. But this is for me a signal for fragmentation in global energy coordination, right? And for countries like Nigeria or Angola. So this for me, I would say create something that could be very dangerous because it creates revenue volatility. And that I'm sure they don't want to see, right? So now let's look at the hidden connection between those two pieces of news. And the reason why I wanted to discuss them today with you so that you could see what could be the correlation, just in case it doesn't make sense for you, right? So most analysts, they will treat those two stories as separate, right? But I believe that they're not. According to me, they for me the two sides of the same shift. So what is that shift I'm talking about? So that shift I'm talking about is the global economies is moving from fossil fuel dependency to energy transition competition. Yeah, I know. When I say that, you'll be like, okay, Tony, are you not very too optimistic? Not really. Because I believe that Africa faces a double-edged moment. So trade is opening up with China, and also oil is becoming unreliable. That's upward shift. And right in the middle, what we get, it's a massive underutilized opportunity. Renewable energy industrializations. That's what I see. And I want to talk about some case studies of countries, I believe, which could really use those two shifts in a very interesting way. Let me first talk about Morocco. And Morocco, for me, is playing the long game, right? So if you've not been to Morocco just yet, you may have come across this large solar plant, which is a no the Noah's that solar plant complex that they have over there. It's quite massive, impressive, right? So you have PV, but you also have CSP technology. So if you're going to Morocco, you want to be looking at that because that's actually very interesting. Because for me, Morocco didn't wait for this moment; they actually prepared for it because it's one of the world largest solar complex in the world, which I just showed there, and they have an aggressive green hydrogen strategy and a strong positioning towards Europe and global export markets. That's what we see. Yeah. Now let's imagine this. With the zero tariff into China, Morocco isn't just exporting energy. It can now also export something more than that. It can actually export green values. So processed materials, clean energy derivative, but also future hydrogen fuels. And that's what we want. Because Morocco, for me, understood something early. So energy is not just competition, it is leverage. And if you treat it as such, guess what? You're in a very good position with what's happening right now, right? Now, you may be saying, okay, Tony, that's Morocco. But what about other countries? Let me just take another country which may be much more basically impacted by OPEC. So I want to go for Nigeria. Nigeria, to some extent, for me, they actually cut between two words, right? So Nigeria is the world largest, is the African largest country in terms of population, but also African largest oil producer. But here is the challenge that they have. They have heavy dependence on oil revenues. We know that. They have as well exposure to global price shocks. We know that, right? So we could see slower renewable scale up compared to potential. This is what we could actually potentially see. Yeah. So, and that for me, it's something that need to be treated very carefully because when we talk about Nigeria, right? Because you want to add this OPEC instability, so global oil demand uncertainty, but also increasing pressure for energy transition. So Nigeria is clearly standing at crossroad, and also with what's happening, for example, in the Middle East now with the U.S.-Iran conflict, right? Adding Israel into that, clearly it brings some elements that you want to take into consideration. Now, I see the country of Nigeria is like crossroad because it can actually double down on oil and face more volatility in the future. Because guess what? I know some of you will say that, okay, what we're seeing at the moment is temporary. Yes, I agree with you. Ultimately, oil going to go back down to, let's say, much more traditional level. But guess what? If you look at the history of the world, over the last 10, 20, 30 years, there's always been some kind of volatility in the Middle East, right? So meaning that you facing this kind of issue. So as a country, you want to make a choice. Do you want to double down on oil or face volatility? Or I want to actually use this moment to diversify into renewables and local value chains. And here is the truth. So the country that moves first in energy transition will define the next global economy. But the good thing I would say about Nigeria renewable market, especially solar market, has been booming, I would say, the last couple of years. So, and also definitely they have their own version of energy transition, right? So they step by step making some move over there. So it's an interesting country to look at, and I would definitely invite you to pay attention to that a little bit more, right? So that would be good because what we've used from Nigeria is to look at those big, huge oil refinery, and I know as well that with the Dangote refinery, it's definitely a sense of it's a pride of Africa right now, right? I think even if I'm not particularly somebody promoting oil and gas, I can only recognize what he's done and obviously appreciate the man, right? He's done terribly good, right? So industrialization for a continent, that's what we want. And as you talk, and when you talk about an African industrializing the continent, clearly you can't step away from him. So kudos to him, definitely. But I believe that Nigeria here could definitely, certainly, still use the oil for the growth of the country, but also use that to develop energy transition, right? So that they have a much more diversified economy and not just be exposed to the oil shocks that we see on a regular basis. That's what I want to say. Now, I want to move into a third country, right, which I believe as well should definitely make sure that they take advantage of what's happening at the moment. I want to talk about Ethiopia. So, what you know about Ethiopia? So, if you're looking about Ethiopia recently, and probably if you're watching this channel, so I've talked about the GERD, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. So that's not a picture of the dam in here. That's just one dam in Ethiopia. That's all. But Ethiopia, as you know, it's definitely another country progressing quite fast, right? And Ethiopia offers a different model. They have strong investment into hydropower. They have development of industrial parks, and they focus on energy and also manufacturing integration. And that is very interesting. It is critical actually, because the future is not just about generating energy, but it's also about connecting energy into industries. Because energy, like I say, it's an enabler. And Ethiopia is quietly building that system. And we can only obviously congratulate them on that. Now, imagine if they combine that with tariff free access to China or scale renewable capacity, that becomes a manufacturing advantage, not just an energy one. And that's great, right? So I've given you three examples of three countries: Morocco, Nigeria, Ethiopia, clearly for me, and definitely share with you just right now how I believe they can take advantage of what's happening right now, right? So, what should Africa do now, right? So, what Africa do with this moment? I can think about three strategic moves that they can do. So, number one, I would say export green value, not just the raw input. What do I mean? I don't want you to be just exporting lithium, but battery component, processed minerals, and green hydrogen. The good thing is some countries have understood that. I know that Zimbabwe, Uganda, they're all moving towards making sure that they will just ban the export of pure raw minerals. They have to be transformed somehow in the country, and that is good. We can also support that. And the China zero tariff should not accelerate extraction. It should, for me, accelerate industrialization. So definitely, the continent is going to be very booming. Yeah, because like I say, I come back from East Africa. I've been there a couple of weeks ago. So to Kenya, to Uganda, Tanzania. Yeah, like I say, when you go on the ground, definitely things are shifting, things are moving, and it's great to see. So definitely, as I was talking about, three strategic moves. Number one, exporting the green value and not just the raw input. So the second thing that I want to see as a strategic move, you want to use oil instability as a trigger. Mhm. Yes, listen, guys. Use oil instability as a trigger. Oil volatility is not just a risk for me. Don't just take it as a risk, take it as a signal. Yes, signal. Investors are watching and market are shifting. That's what you want to see. Because I've always said that don't ever let a good crisis go to waste, right? That's what I'm sure you've heard about, right? So always look at where is the money moving. Yeah. So that's very important. So investors watching, market shifting, so you want to pay attention to that. Use that oil instability as a trigger. So it's the moment for you to redirect capital, to accelerate renewable deployment, and to build energy independence. Guess what? A lot of people are doing really in a quiet mode. Yes, I can tell you that. So you want to be following suit. So what is the third thing that I would recommend as a strategic move? I would say you want to build ecosystem, not just project. Yes, don't just go and say I want to build a solar farm. No, think about how can I build a grid? How can I build storage? How can I build manufacturing cluster? That is what we really want in here. Absolutely, guys. Because when we have two important moves like that, you need to start thinking strategically, long term. What really build up the continent, right? Think about scale, not just a simple solar farm. No, that's what I invite you to do. Because the winners in this transition, they're not the countries with resources. They are the countries with system. That's what I would say. So Africa for me, it's no longer on the sideline, and you could see that. Like I say, really, guy, go on the ground, you will see. Even from the ground already, I would invite you to open up your eyes because sometimes when you're used to, let's say, struggles, you seem to be missing very interesting thing happening, right? So the continent is not on the sideline anymore. It's actually, I would argue, at the center of global trade shift, of energy transition, also industrial transformation. Here is for me a defining question. So will Africa remain a supplier, or will the continent finally become a builder of the future? So I'm not talking about choosing between China or OPEC. It's not about that. It's about choosing Africa. And it's about choosing Africa's role. So that's what I would say. So if you are a policymaker, you are an investor, and you are a developer, now is the time for you to rethink the strategy because the window is now open, but it won't stay open. That I can say. So if you're thinking the transition is too complex, that's exactly why platform like us already exists because we act as an eco bridge between the policy, the capital, and also clean energy execution. So you want to reach out. You want to reach out and have a conversation. Because I can tell you that the question is no longer if Africa will transition, but who will lead it? Will it be you? Will it be part of it? Choice is yours. But for me, I bet obviously my job to let you know what's happening, and I'm looking forward to engaging with you to talk further, right? Hopefully you liked it, guys. See you later and have a beautiful Sunday. Take care. Bye bye.